How to deal with a narcissistic ex-partner. One of the first things to understand is whether your partner or ex-partner was actually or is actually a narcissist or not. It's really easy to throw around the term narcissist, fully understanding what it actually means. I think in today's culture of social media and celebrity, it's all about the self. We talk about selfies and people are putting photos of themselves online literally all of the time. And that idea of kind of vanity gets kind of called narcissism when perhaps it's not actually. But where does the term narcissism even come from? In Greek mythology, Narcissus was renowned for his beauty. One day he saw a pool of water and was thirsty, so he thought, I'll have a drink. Leant over, looked at his reflection, fell in love with it, and then realised that he would never ever be able to have the object of his desire, himself. And so he killed himself. Greek mythology is crazy, right? Now, whilst vanity or looking after yourself, etc., could be a trait of a narcissist, it doesn't necessarily make them a narcissist. The whole point of this is about helping yourself recover if your ex was a narcissist. It is entirely possible for your ex to have treated you badly, cheated on you, been toxic, without being a narcissist, by just being a bit of a piece of shit. Because some people just aren't very nice people. That doesn't necessarily make them a narcissist. Being a narcissist isn't a choice, it's a personality disorder, and it's a spectrum as well. It's not really a case of a binary thing of this being yes you are or no you're not. Now, I'm not asking you for a second to feel sorry for your ex in any way or forgive them for what they've done if you're not in a place to do that. But maybe to understand that they were being led by what their brain was telling them as opposed to making horrible choices intentionally. That doesn't make anything that they did to you any better, but if you can just maybe understand that it's because they've got a mental disorder, then it might be that much easier to understand why it happened. So what are the symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder? Well, like I said, I want to be clear, you are not in a position to diagnose anyone, mainly because you do not know what's going on inside the head. So what are the symptoms? An inflated sense of self-importance. Now, this can be displayed in many ways, but they all have the belief that perhaps that they are better than other people, or more powerful than other people, or more intelligent than other people, or any number of those things. And they'll also believe that they are more charming or prettier or whatever than they actually are. So they've got this sense that they are better than they actually are, and better than other people. Going hand in hand with this is a superiority complex. This is the idea that they actually kind of deserve the better things in life. They normally are ungrateful for the things they actually have at the moment, and they're always going to be seeking the next best thing to have. They believe they deserve the things which are better. Very, very common, and this is the one that most people pick up on, is the constant need for praise and attention. Now, that might be something to do with their looks, it might be something to do with things that they've done, but they will be constantly seeking validation for all of that thing. And believe it or not, narcissists actually have very low self-esteem. So the reason they had this kind of weird thing where they had this inflated sense of self-importance at the same time as feeling really rubbish about themselves, but they kind of live in this kind of dream fantasy where they are better than everyone whilst feeling rubbish. Pretty crazy, right? And that's why they need this constant validation to keep that dream alive and to keep topping that up. They also, as a part of that, will not take criticism very well at all either. Entitlement. Someone with narcissistic personality disorder, I've said that way too many times already, will generally believe that they have an entitlement to be treated better than other people. If you've had a partner who is a narcissist, they will generally put very high demands on you and been very expecting of those demands to always have been met. Manipulation and exploitation. Now, this can come in many different ways, but narcissists always have a certain thing that they want to have achieved, like a goal or something they want to happen, and they won't really care how they achieve that. So that can mean manipulating people or exploiting people, and that can be through being really super charming and over nice, because that often works with narcissists are typically very, very charming, and make you feel kind of wonderful about yourself in the beginning at least. And then if that doesn't work, then they can flip a switch instantly and they can go down the cruelty route and trying to manipulate you and exploit you to do things that they want in a kind of more vindictive way. Lack of empathy and feelings of guilt. Now, this is a really big one. It'd be very difficult for someone to be a narcissist without this. So narcissists literally cannot put themselves in a position where they understand what that would have made you feel like. So a complete lack of empathy is one of the biggest signs as well. Remorselessness. If you've had a narcissistic ex-partner do something to you and you simply haven't been able to understand why they've done it, then that comes from the lack of empathy. But then it's when you point out, this is what you did and this is how it made me feel, and they still aren't really getting it, that's because they were trying to get a certain thing, and if they got that thing, then they're happy. It doesn't really matter what kind of bridges were burnt or carnage happened along the way. It's not something that most people can kind of get their head around, because most people do feel empathy and do feel guilt and do feel this remorseful for things that have happened. That then is backed up by the idea that they find it very, very difficult to apologise for things that they've done. And even if you do force an apology out of them, they will very rarely mean it. Envy and distrust. So typically narcissists feel like they're in competition with everyone for everything. So if they've got a partner, they'll constantly be thinking that someone else is after him or her or whatever. And also they'll feel like other people are in competition for them because they've got this sense that they're kind of amazing. But with that comes just huge amounts of jealousy, and if other people have achieved things, they'll normally badmouth them or something to make them look worse, so that their achievements seem less good. So, oh yeah, they've done that, but they're a terrible person because of whatever. Generally, they'll rarely believe that those people have deserved those things, and they'll rarely be happy for them either. Arrogance. Generally, people with NPD will believe that people are lesser than them, and probably not deserving of their attention, probably quite like any adoration they receive from them, but they won't really give them the time of the day. They'll just take the bit they need, and their arrogance will just say, well, they're not good enough, but I'll take that compliment, but no thanks on anything else because you're lesser than me. Now, whilst those are the symptoms of the person in general, you can find symptoms within the relationship if you go back and analyse it. Typical symptoms might be things like gaslighting you, basically making you question your own mental stability by undermining you. Trying to control your actions. Attempting to control who you see and who you can interact with. Not really wanting to define what the relationship is. Hiding parts of the relationship from the kind of general viewing to prevent them from seeing like they're not available. Panicking if you even think about breaking up with them. Lashing out if you try to move on from the relationship. That is by no means exhaustive as a list. Narcissist and the expression narcissism is just thrown around willy-nilly. And I want to be clear, there's a lot of things which might look like it but actually aren't. Those are things such as high self-esteem, being assertive, being overly competitive, taking high levels of pride in their achievements, loving making themselves look good, being very comfortable and charming in social situations. A narcissist could have all of those qualities, but someone could have one or several or all of those qualities without being a narcissist. So, with that information in place, the question is, does it matter whether you just had a crappy ex or whether you had a narcissistic ex? In a word, no, it doesn't. It's neither here nor there, really, with regards to the advice that I'm going to give you, because the advice I'm going to give you is good advice to follow, even if they weren't a narcissist and they just weren't a very nice person or they're a toxic person. The technique I'm going to be talking about is called the grey rock method. Narcissists demand attention, and that's why they're so lovely and so charming, because they just want to have that kind of fed back to them in kind of any way. So once the relationship is over, whether it ended because of you or because of them, they still don't want to let go of that idea of being kind of validated and of being adored. So they will carry on trying to get that attention from you in that way. But if that doesn't work, they will switch gears and they will try and get into arguments. They will try and upset you so that you get angry and you shout back at them. And the reason is because it's attention. And attention is a narcissist's fuel, and you need to cut off that supply. And how do you do that? Well, you become a grey rock. Boring, uninspiring, and unresponsive. And that's kind of how you need to be. The grey rock method is super simple to understand. It's slightly more difficult to implement because you've got to hold a lot of stuff in sometimes, and you've got to keep yourself calm at times, and that can be difficult, especially if you've got someone who knows exactly how to press your buttons. So there's 4 fundamentals to it. Keeping interactions with your ex to an absolute bare minimum. For the unavoidable interactions, make them as brief as you possibly can. Respond in single word answers where possible. Communicate factually, logically and with as little emotion as you possibly can. The idea of the grey rock method is to demonstrate to your narcissistic ex that you have no interest in them whatsoever and they should have no interest in you. But it's all done in a calm, boring way. Demonstrate what your intentions are through your actions. So here's some do's and don'ts for the grey rock method. Do: unfriend and unfollow on social media. Go onto Facebook's memory settings and remove them from someone whose memories you see. Ask closed questions, ones that have a yes or no answer. Only communicate if you actually have to. That's for children, finances, house, and things like that. And even with some of that, you can still communicate through an intermediary if you need to. Set yourself very clear boundaries. Hold in all of the stuff that you want to say to them and let it out at a later time, maybe to someone else, or write it down. Don't say it to them. Take time to be with yourself and heal from the relationship. Avoid emotional engagement with your ex. Don't make any extra effort with your appearance. Any sign that you may be making an effort will be seen by your narcissistic ex as you trying to get their attention in some way. Don't get drawn back in by them charming you. Don't engage in small talk. Sorry, I'm really pointy at the moment. Don't go on trips down memory lane. Don't rise to any bait or insults that are thrown at you. Don't become a booty call or sleep with them for old time's sake or just one more time or whatever. Nothing like that. Don't boast or brag about your life now, because they will just see that as a comparison between now and then, and therefore you're still thinking about them, therefore they're still getting attention. And don't be afraid to have two different settings for your personality. One where you're the grey rock, and that's when you're with your narcissistic ex, and one where you're just you. Anytime that you're not with your ex, you just do you. You, be happy and be yourself. Further information and potential risks. The method itself is fairly difficult to prove whether it works or not, but anecdotal evidence from people who have tried it suggests that it does. Now, by being reserved and not rising to stuff, your narcissistic ex could potentially, if they're that sort of person, get annoyed and frustrated with you that you're not doing what they want you to do. And there's a potential chance that their behaviour could escalate as they're going to kind of up their game because they are really trying to get this response from you. So if you are living with your ex or you haven't actually split up with your ex yet, it is not advisable to take on the grey rock method because of this chance of escalation if they're that sort of person. If you feel like they could be this sort of person, then make sure that any interactions you have with them in person are done in public places. If you ever feel like you're in danger, then call the police on 999, or if it's not an emergency, then you can contact the National Domestic Abuse Helpline, who can help you whether you're with your ex still or whether you've actually already split up. I'll put a link to the website and the number to call in the comments, in the description below. And just to kind of reiterate a point I made a moment ago, this is only your setting for when you're with your ex. You can be absolutely you when you're not with your ex. This is only to be used when you're around your ex. You don't want to wear down your real personality and become a shell of your former self or becoming a grey rock all the time. I'm really hoping that this kind of brief video on how to deal with a narcissistic ex will actually be helpful to you in some way. Maybe there's a couple of things in there which are going to work for you. The grey rock method can really, really help people. It's something I think it's definitely worth investing some time in doing. And like I said, you can taper into it slowly if you think that the dramatic change in behaviour is going to be too much for you, and you can just ease your way into it. Now, alongside this grey rock method, or just on its own, it's really important to heal from a relationship where someone's behaved badly towards you or you've been in a toxic environment. So it's really important to work on your self-confidence, your self-esteem, your self-worth. Maybe there's anxiety involved, or there's guilt, or there's all sorts of things going on. I have a whole load of blogs, vlogs, podcast episodes all about this side of self-development. I'll put a link to all of those different types of things in the description below as well. And if you have any comments at all, then please leave them in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed this video, then please like it and hit subscribe. And I'll catch you for a video in the future soon. And I wish you all the best with your future.